banner page. And now let's save this, and now let's refresh the application and see what we have. So the app is ready. Now let's navigate to the product section. So this is the product. Yeah, so now we got it. Now you can see we have this beautiful banner displayed over here. Now you see this is a Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 3, and we have Apple iPhone 15 Pro Max, right? Now let's see if I click on this, I can see I have a new one set. As you can see, this is a new one. This is the new one. Click on this, and maybe you can see I have a new one. So it keeps changing. If I go to the home page and I return back again, let's see. But while it changes, it doesn't get from an API. It only gets from the data, that is the internal data, the cache data. And it is making this app more, and it's going to is increasing the performance. Let me put it in that way. It is increasing the performance of the, you can see we have a new one, Samsung W2017, and we have the same thing in here. Okay, so these also are suggesting the type of phone that the person can get, and we can actually add that. Now the last one left here, it is we want to display a banner down here. Maybe that could be a recommended product. So if I click on recommended product, maybe I'm going to have this going to a slideshow will tell you that this product have been recommended. Maybe you can create a separate model to handle that. But in this case, I'm going to use the featured product, and I'm going to display them there as a recommended product to the user. All right. So let's see how to also do that. Let me bring this video to an end. So let's close this. Okay, so let's close this, and in here we can close all of this because we are done with each of them. Close all this. Now let's go to solution, and now in the same product, right click on this. Let's click on add a new component, and on this time around, we're going to say is a recommended page. So this page, this is what we are going to do. Let me just have just a simple code that we are going to be using. Let me just grab the code in here. And if you check this code, we are creating a list of this featured products. So let me save this. Let me close this, and I'll open it again so we can get rid of that black and white. So recommended product. So you know that here when the page loads, we are subscribing to this, and here you can see we have this. We create an instance of this, a list of products, then we cache it in here. So we create a container, we initialize to new. When the page initializes, we want to grab all featured products. So we call this in case this product, the featured product list has no data. We call this, and it's going to make a API call and I'll cache data for the whole application to use. If you have data in it, then we're going to say this list that we have here, we're going to assign the list of this product, featured product, to the list in here. Then we are going to call this method as populate. What is it going to do? Here, you can see that it's going to populate this. We are creating a dictionary here because we want to group the list. So we want to pick maybe 6 at a time and group them. So you see we are creating a dictionary. The key here, it is an integer, and then the value here is a list of products. And I will give it as recommended. I recommend carousel group products. So here we get end item per view. So on a line like this, how many items do you want to display? That is 6. Let's find the total product. So we get the product service.featuredproduct.count. So we want to get the whole product that we have to display in there. Aside from that, we want to find the number of groups. So we divide the total product here by the item view, that is a 6, to know the number of groups in there. Now we have an initial value of a start number, and we have skip. So start number, it is 1, and our skip is 0. So we are saying that if start number, or if the number of groups, it is less than or equal to 0, meaning here there's no product, because if I have total product and divide by this 6, I must have more than that, right? So we want to say if it is equal to 0 or less than that, then return. If not, we're going to use a while loop to group this. So while start number, that is a 1, it is less than or equal to number of groups. So there's the number of groups here. So maybe when you have 12, 12 divided by 6 is going to have 2. Start number is 1. So 1 is less than or equal to 2. Yes. So it's going to loop twice. And now when it loops twice, you're going to escape this. The current skip is 0. And now what is the current item to take? That is a 6. And the next one after taking this is going to add this to this dictionary, which comprises of the start number, that is an ID or the key. Now the value here, it is a list of products. We increase the skip and also we increase the start number. So it's going to also loop again, and then it's going to also add it. So we're going to have a key and then the value. Key is going to be the integer, and then the value is going to be a list of products. Now once we have this, we want to loop through this. So we don't need this dispose. So we want to loop through this. So how do we loop through? We are going to use the carousel that we installed from the Syncfusion that we use in our front component. And in that, we are going to customize ourselves so we can have this feature in it, okay? Because that default one does not have this list. It has only one product display at a time. We want to display 6 at a time. So let's see what we're going to do. But before we do that, I suggest we also, so before we populate this, we must have this product already. So I believe we have to include, the dispose. So here, because definitely when product is being added, this must also get changed. So we have to subscribe to this. And now we have to implement maybe the iDisposable on top. So here, let's implement it here. Okay, so that is this one. And now with the markup, maybe we can use container fluid. And now we're going to have this style also attached to. Very simple one. And when you check this, we're checking if featured product is not null. That is where we want to run this. We have a container fluid, and that is a row. We are using the card, and this is an SF carousel as we used previously. We have visible on hover. That is the button, and we have all these tabs in here. We've done this already in the feature. That's the first or the second. That is the second video. Now we are looping through this dictionary. Okay, and now here the first one is the key. So once you have the key, we also looping through the key. That is the item dictionary over here. And now this key has its value, which is a list of products. So we loop through, we create a card, that's the column LG2. Then we display the 6 in here at a time. And so once this finishes the looping, it is also going to loop until the items in here finish it. So the item here, it is, I think, how many items do we have? We have 2 items here. So until these 2 items finish, it will still keep looping through. And it's going to have a group of groups. Okay, a group of groups, and that's what we did. So it's just a customized one that we are doing to achieve what we want. Okay, and that is so you can see it's the same thing that we have been doing. But don't worry, I also put this on GitHub, so you can also go in there and grab this as well. Okay. Now, once you have this set, let's save this, and now let's go and use this component in the product list home page. So there's a product list home page. So once you come here at the end of this, you want to replace it, or you want to just continue with this. It is an LG12, meaning you're going to take the whole row. Then we have this card on top, and we have this recommended page. So if I save this, and now let's try to run this application and see what we have now. Okay, so let's navigate to our product. And now you must see this recommended product, and that is what we have here. We have recommended section down here. Now let's wait for the list to pop up. So down here, and now let's see. Good, so we have it set. Now you can see we have the recommended product, and now we have the name of the item. We have the description. You can see we are having this append dot. When the text here is more than 100, we can do that. Maybe you can shortcut this, maybe 60 or 70, etc. but maybe you can do that yourself, and I believe so. I trust you can make it. We are going to look at authentication, authorization, and refresh token support. So you know what, the very first thing that you're going to do here is to change or to include a loader, a screen loader. See what I'm talking about. If I try to refresh this application, you can see it's going to load for data to get connected to an API, retrieve data. The communication must happen established before data will be retrieved, and then process it and then display. Now you can see instead of just having the blank screen like this, we want to display some loader in there, so the user will know that, okay, there's a process going on, so I have to wait, and that is it. Now when you click on the home button to see what's going to happen, you can see if I refresh this, a connection must be created, established between the API and the client, and you can see all this must happen. And you want to even change, as you can see with this, you want to, the data is not available, but you can see we have these navigations, and we don't want to do that, okay? You want this to get popped up as soon as the data is ready. And I believe you can do that, isn't it? So quickly, let's use like 5 minutes to finish this. We don't want to waste much time on this because we have a lot of things to do today. Okay, so we're going to run like a rabbit. Okay, so just by the way, now let's see. So I have this small one that I'm going to make. We go back to the index, for Blazor WebAssembly, we can change the loading from the application itself. We go to the solution, and from this client section, I'm talking about the client project. You go to the, where is it? Let's go to the www folder, and you can see we have this index. With this index, we have this pop-up default. This what is loading SVG up to this. So we want to remove this and now paste in what we have. It's just a div of class called rectangular 1 up to 5. So we're going to have it in a style, right, using the CSS. Okay, so we have this, and the next thing to do here is going to have a CSS copied. And you know what? I'm going to put the CSS in solution. Now I go back to the CSS file. We have this app.css. So maybe in here, I'll go down here and I'll try to add a custom CSS style to it. Remember that this is a custom CSS style to the carousel. Now in here, let's have, there's a custom style to screen loader. So with this, Control K C, let me comment this. And now with this style, credit goes to Michael Washington. So this is just an interesting one, very simple one as well. So I'm going to just paste the CSS style in here. I'm not sure you're able to type everything, but you can just go through them, type them. If else, then check the, did I say if else? Okay, so if else statement, right? Okay, so if you know you can type all this, then don't worry, it will be on the repo, so you can just go in there and clone it, and that's all. You don't know how to type everything. But as you can see, we're using this spinner, rectangular 1 up to 5, as you can see, and we're using this keyframe to just set it in animation form. Okay, so that is what we are having in here. Very simple one. You can see that is it. Now let's save this, and when trying to read the application, you're gonna have some simple display. That's gonna be the loading. We're gonna scrap off that loading from 1 up to 100. Let's see. So I'm gonna run this. All right, so you can see this is what I'm looking at. Now this is what we have. You can see this is just a small loading, and that's what we're using to load our app. You can see we do not have that circular SVG file that starts from 0 up to 100, the default one. Now we are using this to load the application. So you can see that as soon as it finishes loading, we have the app being displayed in here. Okay, so that's the default loader. Now this site, we want to get this loaded. So what can we do so we can have that loading have an effect over this component or this component too? So what we can do is to create a component. So let's go in there and I'll create components. And you know what? You go to Solution Explorer. Now you can see from our pages folder, there's also one folder known as other pages. Let's open that and let's create one additional component. And that's what we're going to use to handle the loading aspect. Okay. Now in here, I'm going to pass the name as screen loading or loading page. Well, you can even put in your name there. Okay, doesn't matter. Aside from that, we want to create a separate CSS class for this. So once you have this page created, you see that's the loading page. Right click on the same other pages folder. Let's click on add new item. This time we're going to create a CSS file. So we pass in here as style. Maybe you ask me, why can't we put it in the app.css, or will that won't take an effect? Okay, so let's see if that one is going to take effect. Now, with the same component that we have created, what we're going to do here is, let's specify the div that we copied. I hope you remember this. Let me increase the size. So that's what we have now. Now, if I run this, nothing's going to happen now. Okay, so the second thing to do here is we're going to link this page into our component. So if you have been following all the tutorials or the part that we have been doing, I mean you and I have been doing together, you know, when we check our solution, our application in such a way that we don't call the API all the time. Anytime the page loads, we don't call the API. We have a cache variable that we cache all the data in there. We call the API only when the cache variable is empty, is null. That is when the application is starting or addition or updating of a product has been occurred. Now, in that, we registered an action. Okay, this action gets invoked anytime an update has been occurred, data has been added, or there's an event, or there's another method called, or there's an operation set against. Okay, so when you check our product service, this is our interface. We have all this. And you can see we've cached all this in here. So in order to have the loading page also get work, we want to also include this is visible. So when this is being invoked, we can set this visible to true or false, so we can hide and show this loading page. Okay, so let's add it here. And now when you go back to, okay, it asked me to rebuild it, but I'm not ready to build it, so let me close this up. Now let's go back to the solution. And now, since we have updated the interface for the product service, it means when you go to the client service, and on top here, you're going to have this red line under, and that's fine. So control period, we're going to include this implement interface, and that is what we have in here. So, you know, we want to remove this so we can have it set and get. These are the accesses that we need, so we can set and now retrieve the value of this property that we have or we are creating. We save that. Okay, so we have it. How come you have it already? Okay, so you have iProduct service. We have this visible. It's visible. We come here and now here we set it to. So default, it does not have any default value for this. Okay, now as soon as I click on get all products, so here, since I click on get all products, first of all, I want to set this visible to true because here process is going to be okay. So set this to true so you can have it loading. As soon as this product gets, you have this list here, get the product that it needs, and this invoked, you want to set this to false before this invoked, so that as soon as this invoked, this value can change and it can update the UI simultaneously. So let's have this set to false. That's for the get all product. Now aside from that, when you can see that from this featured product view, let's see what we can do to do same. We can just do same to that, because when we want to get data from the API, set is visible, and as soon as the data has been retrieved and now cached in there, please set this to false, because as I speak, the data will be having, the container will be having a list of records of products in it. So I'm set this to false, invoke it so we can display all the products in there. That is what we need. Now this is a mother method of get product. You can see it is calling from an API. We pass in this parameter as a query string so we can retrieve based on the featured or not. Okay, we can do that. We did that in the 2 subsequent video past. Is it 2 or 3? You can check any of them. I think I explained it in that video. Okay, so we have this set and that is fine. All that we need to do is to go to our page and I'll try to include or use this component. So we go back to this pages folder, not other pages, this time our product pages, and I can see we have this home page. That is with this, the product list homepage links all these pages, so we can use them, we can control them in here, the view. So on top here, we can include maybe product service.visible. You know, this is a property that we created. So if it is visible, we want to display this loading page. But in case it is not, then you're going to say if else. So else, then we want to show this. Okay, so if it is visible, we display this. That is when the product is getting data from an API, please display loading page. And now when the data is ready, please the loading page to set to off, because an event which is the product list, product action is going to be invoked. As soon as invoke, this page has been subscribed to it, and as you can see, it has subscribed to the state change. As soon as the product service or product action is being invoked, this page gets re-rendered. Now, when it is getting re-rendered, the value of this also gets changed, and we can hide this peacefully without any issue. That's what we are doing here. So in our main page, that's a product list page where we have our categories. As you can see from this categories, we have a banner, we have a product list page. We're going to have this loader to get loaded while the page prepares itself, getting connection with an API, communicating and organizing data to be displayed on the screen. When you check the front page too, there is a session that we can also implement the same. That is when the app loads initially. You can see we saw that we saw two navigations images, right? We want to hide them since the product to display are not ready. So in order to do that, we're going to do the same. So just quickly grab this, grab what we have in here, and now quickly let's go back to the front page. And then that is actually the home page. When that app loads first, that is where it has to go. So you can see we have the front page in here. And now beneath the disposable, we're going to use the same thing, and we can close this up here. So when you check this, let's see, we have if it is visible, display this. But in case it is not, then we want to hide that. So let's save this. Let me open this. Hey, let me close that. Then let me open this again. Okay, so Control KD. Let's see. Okay. So I wanted to format too well. Alright, so now we have this. Let's try to load the app and see what we have. In case they couldn't work, it means you have to add the CSS to it. And we're going to do that. If this couldn't use the CSS file in our CSS code or the style in the app.css file. So you can see that the app is now loading, and that is the default one that is loading. Now let's wait to see when it gets to the home page. We must also have the same indicator, and that's the loading page to display it while it gets connected with an API. As you can see from here, it gets connected to an API, so we have the displayed. But the featured product here, we did not include that, so we have this page same. Okay, so we're gonna also edit this because this is ready. So, but we don't want to include loading here, right? We don't have two loading symbols or two loading indicators in here. No, we don't do that. We want the user to know that it is uniform, it is one. So we're going to use the same method to apply to this component, but instead of using the loading page component, we're going to skip that. It's going to be empty unless this page is ready. Let's quickly have a look on that. Then we can now jump up to our authentication system. So this can be found inside our project. To go back to the solution explorer. Now in here, you can see we have, where is it? Do you see? It's a featured product. I get it. Now in here, we want to have something like this if it is false. Because if it is visible, is true, that is where you want to display the component, the loading page. Here, if it is false, meaning the page is already loaded and communication has been established, so that is where we want to display this. So if it is false, then display this. So as I speak, when we run this, let's see the final one. So we can say goodbye to this and we can move on to what we're going to do. So it is loading. Now let's see. So this is the default one that it loads. You can even shape this to the middle if you want to do that. Okay. As you can see, this is hidden. The feature is hidden. We have only one indicator and this keeps loading until this section is ready. communication has been established on an API, data has been retrieved or received, and now try to process it and display it to the UI. That is where it's going to set you off. Yeah, you can see. And we're going to also have a pop-up with this. That's fine. You see, so we do not have any structure that get displayed while the page is not available. No, we don't do that. Hide them. When the page is ready, get them shown. And that is what it is doing. Yes, I believe you also achieved the same. Thank you and well done. Now let's quickly go to our authentication system, because that is what we want to focus in this video. This is just, by the way, is a pass-by message that I want to deliver to you. And I believe you love it. You can also implement a whole lot of loading screen if you want to. There are a lot of loading screen online that you can just go in there and search. Even with Bootstrap, it has a lot of loading indicators that you can also get them to use. I have a video done on loading screen too, so I'll put it in the video description. If you want to have a separate or varieties of loading screens, you can go there and watch that video, and you're going to have access to them, and the source code also is available, so you can just go in there and grab them, integrate it, and fine, you can move on with yours. Okay, so what we're going to do here is an authentication, and I believe you know that here we're not going to use JWT. You want to use an access token. Now the access token is going to be a string that we are going to issue. This string does not contain any claim. As soon as a request is being sent from the client, it adds a token to the header. As soon as it gets to the API it's going to catch the header, retrieve the access token from the API, and now run some queries on the token, and now check if it's valid. The client has to keep them, add the access token to the header anytime they're going to make a request to a protected endpoint. Then aside from that, it keeps the reference token when the server returns a 401 as unauthorized, meaning the token has expired. Then the client has to resend the reference token so the server can use that reference token, check it in the database, and try to get a new reference token and an access token to the user. It returns to the client, and the client has to keep them, remove the old header, and I include a new header, and I try to make another request with this. And this must happen between the computer to computer. The user shouldn't have any idea. If the user doesn't open the network tab to see what is happening there, no, it is an out of bank area, so the user can see. What the user will see here is I click on the get data, and now I have my data. That's fine. So let's start with this. So in application, we're also going to handle with roles as well. So definitely we must have some roles for ourselves. And we are going to create two roles, administrator and now user. So if you log in, if you can buy item in our shop, you can add the item to cart. But as soon as you want to buy, you must log in. And for adding of categories, for adding of product, it is the administrator who has to do that. So two people in the row, administrator and now the user. But guess what? You can also customize it. You can even add multiple rows. When you have the concept, you can extend it to any role that you want. Okay, you can be adding a whole lot. So this is just a manual way of authentication. You're not using JWT. You're not using the default endpoint from the .NET 8 and API. We are creating our own stuff. Okay, so maybe with a step, you're going to understand what I'm going to use in the access token. So first thing is, let's go back. We have to create a model for our registration. So let's close all this since we are done with the loading. Now in solution, you can see we have this. Now I want to have a separation of consent. So if there's a model that I will never put them in the shared library because the client will not need them. It is limited to the server only. So definitely I have to put them in the server section. Okay. So you can see from the server, I have a folder called data. And then I need the data here. I'm going to add new item, and it's going to be a class, and I'm going to say user account. With the user account, I'm going to have maybe 4 properties in this, and that is all going to handle user identity. We have ID, name, email, and password. That is fine. So I hope you have the same thing. The next thing we're going to do here is we're going to assign a user role. So this user role, that is what's going to handle what the user role related to the account. So let's also create one in there, and it must happen in the same data folder. You can create a separate folder and now add it. Okay, you can do that. You can customize the way that you want. Now user role. Now with this user role, I'm going to have 3 properties. You know, since I'm going to save to database, we must have an ID. So this ID has user ID and a row ID. So this is like a is a relationship that we are establishing. But this time I don't want to use the actual relationship. You want to use this. This is just a loose one. Okay. The first one we can use a cascaded one, but here we want to do our own stuff. So I think this okay. We have an ID, and this is going to be for primary key, and we are not actually into this. What we are into much here, it is a user ID and a row ID. So user ID 1 and a row ID 1. Row ID 1 means administrator. User ID 1 is netcode. So if I want to gather all the information, I pick the row ID and I go to the row table and I can grab the row name. So we have not created the row yet, and the row name here I'm going to create is going to be a system rows. So system rows, let's create one class for that quickly. We're going to have, I think, 2 properties. You can include the property, you can include more, but for now we're going to have system row. This time we're going to have the row ID and then the row name. The row ID here default is going to be for the primary key, and we have just the row name. That's what we have. Okay. Now you have row ID and a row name. So these are the modules that we need for the authentication solution, and you can see we have them in here. The next thing here is we need a token information, because you're going to be saving this, not a JWT. So you know JWT is a stateless. It means that the server or the code, the token must have everything that it needs for the server to authenticate it, to identify it. But this is going to be a stateful. So yeah, it means we have to cache in something so we can be looping through, checking up here and there, moving up and down to make some checks before we can give go ahead to the client endpoint. So we say token information, and I say token info. Now with this token info, I'm going to have 5 or 6 properties. How many are they? There are 6, isn't it? Yeah. There's an ID here, you know, the ID automatically is a primary key, so we don't count this, okay? It is not what we want. This for the database section. We have a user ID, so the specific user, you want to cache in the ID in here. You want to have the access token that's going to be issued to the user, and also the refresh token. Now the expiry date for the access token, and now also the created date. Normally we're not going to use the created date, but guess what? We just want to bring it up. So maybe later on, if you want to customize it, based on this, you can retrieve the day that the token is being created, or try to do some stuff with it. Okay, do some magic with it. So you save it, and we are done with our token information. So we have these 3 models that we have created. Now the next thing to do here is, since we're going to be using them in the database, we have to include them in the appdbcontext.cs class, and that's the data context class. So click go to solution. And then in here, you have your appdb context, right? So here, we're going to add them down here. And now I'm just going to copy them. So we need 4 tables. So you can see we have user accounts, system rows, user rows, and token info. We added 4 modules, and we have them set in here to create a respective database table with the various columns specified as the properties for us. Okay, we have the sets. Now the next thing we can do here is we can perform database migration so it can create a table for us. So let's close this. We're going to build this application first, but this one I'm going to do, I want to change this section. So appdb appsetting.json, and now here the demo shop db. So I'm going to say this YouTube shop db, so you can create a new table for us. Okay, let's build this project first. So right click, build solution. You can see that successful build, as you can see, 2 succeeded. So let's see. Now I'm going to data migration. I can just remove this because we're going to be doing it again. But guess what? The same database that you use, you can continue with this. Okay, here I want to just change it to a new one. Now with this, I'm going to add migration. So type in add-migration, and I give it a name as, whoa, what is happening? Okay, so add migration. Now the name of it is going to be first, so I'm going to pass in that first. This is going to build it, but since we built it already, it's going to make it super fast. And let's wait for it. After that, you're going to add database update database to put the code here into an action by creating a table for us. Okay, so let's see, we have this, and no store type or specify for decimal property price. Yeah, thank you. We want to move on. So here you're going to say update dash database. Okay, so I believe we are doing the same. So now let's run this so we can generate or can create the whole table for us. Because we have system rows, token info for table, categories as a table. We have user account as table. And you can see we have the primary keys, and each here has its primary key as an ID. So that is what I was talking about. Okay, so this is what the database needs. It's not our business, but we have to bring it there for it can be used. Now we have it is done. So we have a folder, a database created. If I refresh this, try to open or access my SQL Server Object Explorer, which can be found in the Views tab, and you can find it there. If I open my tax database, and because I have YouTube Shop DB, and that is it. Currently, I have tables, 5 tables in all. I think so, or less. It is reloading the pages, so the table, so we can just wait for a few seconds, and this will be done, okay? But we can't wait because we don't have time to wait. So we can just move on. Later on, we come back to check, and even that is it. So you see 2, 4, 6. So tables, category, product, system, rows, token info, user account, and our user rows. So within each table, there's no single item in it because you have not added anything yet. You'll do that soon, okay? Trust me. Okay, so let's close this peacefully. We can close all of this because we are done using them. We don't need them for now. So close them so we can have screen here, empty space to work on. Now, when you click on Solution Explorer, you can now go to the server, and you can see we have these repositories. That is where we have our interfaces and our repository implementations. Now, within this, you can create a folder and put all the interfaces name and name it as contract or interfaces or etc. But I don't want to create a lot of folders, so I want to just put them in one folder. So here, let's also add one interface. And this interface is going to be an interface here. And I'm going to say I use an account. I user account. That's the interface. In that, I'm going to have, let's say, do I need to create, let's have 4 methods in this, okay? But first of all, we're going to be using this. Let me copy this. Let's create this model in here. Later on, I'm going to show you the reason why we are creating this. Now, this post refresh token will be used by both the server and the API. Not the server, the API, the server and the client. So I suggest you put them in here. So where we have this, we can create a folder in the shared project and I name it as DTOs. That's a data transfer object used to transfer data from the server to the client, DTOs. So we can create this, and let me add one class in here. We're going to be adding 2 more classes for login and for user. But here we have post refresh token, which has only a single property. So we can create that, and we can specify this to only a single property. Don't worry, if you don't understand this for now, don't worry, I'll get them explained to you. Make it as public. That is what we want. Now the next question is, did we even check if the classes that we injected or we created have this public class or internal? So we can just quickly go back, user rows. It has public, token public, system rows public, and system that is fine. Okay, so we have this, and when we go back to this interface, we have what to have in our 4 methods. Now the 4 methods, one's going to be login. You're going to have registration. You're going to have get user by token, and you're going to have get refresh token. I want us to do all in one. Okay, so we won't waste time. So you can see we have our register, login, and our get user by token. We have refresh token. Now service response, we have login response. But here we're not having the login response from this class. Solution, we have our responses in the shared folder. Click on service responses, and you can see we have only this. Let's update it and add more. So here I'm going to say it's equal to null. So I want to set a default property for that. Now I can just make a copy of this, and with this I'm going to say not service, rather it's going to be what? Login. That's right. So login response, and now with this login response, I believe it must have some property that we're going to be using. So login response. We must have maybe a message, you must have token, and also refresh token. So maybe what I'm going to do here is I can just copy this and replace the whole thing in here. Okay. So maybe be asking yourself, why did we not specify a property like what we did in the, where is it? In this. Token info and etc. like this. Okay. Here we can use this record, and it gives us the access to do this. So it set a primary constructor for this that we can specify the property or the values automatically as soon as we create this, instead of creating an instance and passing in the assigning the property here to its value. We can pass in the value automatically, and it's going to in a smart way. Okay, bound to each. Okay, so that's what we need to do now. A very simple one. Okay. So there's no get or set access. Defaultly it is there, but it is hidden. Let me put it in that way. It is hidden. You cannot see it for now, but it's still going to work. So we have a message, we have a token, we have a refresh token. You see, we have all default. They are set to null. So default is set to null. Okay. Now let's go back to our iUser account, and we can now use this. But there's one guy here as user session. What is user session? That's what we're going to use to populate our data for token generation. Okay. And for also getting user details. So we have to also create this user session to our project. The question is, where are you going to keep it? Is it from the server, from the API? Not the server, the API, the server, the client, and on the shared library, which one? Let's put it in the shared folder because it's still going to be used by both. So here we have our DTO, right click on the DTO, let's click on add a new class. And now here you're going to say user session. User session is going to have the claim that we need. So maybe you can just name it as claims, or so claims would be fine. And user session also be fine. So here we're going to have 3 properties: name, email, and row. So that's what you're going to be sending to the client. Okay, you want to send the person's name, the person's email, the person's row. Maybe in case you want anything that you want to add, you can add one property to this and now assign it in there. Okay. When you go back and check our iUser interface, you see we have all these sorts. But there's one guy here, these 2 guys, user DTO and now the login DTO. So that's what we're going to be using to transport data from the client section. If the client tries to register or login, that's what we need. So in the DTO, let's right click on add a new model, and you're going to say user DTO. You must have the 4 properties that we specify in the user account. And also you must add one property to it. And do you know that one property that we're going to be adding? Let's say you want to add confirm password. So the user can confirm the password. So we're going to make it this as public as you know. And I believe you've done this already. And good job. So here, let's go to the next one. And we need just an ID. Okay. We need our name, email, and our password. Now we have this confirm password added to this. So here you can see we have the data specified, data type.password. We have the password specified, and you can see we have an email specified attribute here, and we have a required attribute also specified on top. And that is what we need to handle this. So control period, we can clear and remove all unnecessary users to make this very simple for us. Now we have this. What else do you think we're going to do? Guess what? Yes, I heard we say login DTO, and that's right. So let's go in there and now create a login DTO. So right click on the same DTOs folder, click on add and a new class, and it's going to be login DTO. And you know, how many properties do we need? Are you saying 2? Yes, it is. We need 2 properties, and these are what? The email and password. That's correct. So we have our public, we have our email and password attached to this. Control period, we can remove unnecessary users because we don't need them. And here, control period, we can include the component model.data annotations to set this attribute on top. That's fine. So all these are required. You cannot pass in this model and I'll try to pass in null property in it. No, it will never happen. You're going to have an error. So we have these models created. Now when we navigate back to the iUser account, see what happened. Yeah, it's fine. Everything is working as expected and it's intact. If you don't understand the last 2 properties or the last 2 interfaces, don't worry. Focus on the first and the second one. The second, third, and the fourth one here is going to explain itself to you. Okay, so relax. Let's work on the first one and now the second one. Okay, so I'm going to remove this, the space here, and we need to create our repository for this. So it's going to be user account repository. Let me just grab this. let's go to the solution. And in here, where we have this repository, let's right click, take note directly in the server, add, and this time I'm going to be a class. And I'm going to use the account repository. So this is what you want to do. It's a class type, so take note. Now, after having this, it has to inherit from the iAccount repository, isn't it? So quickly, we do that from here. And it is inheriting from this. So this control period, we can implement all the interfaces. Take note, we have these interfaces in there, and that's what we need to implement. Control period, control plus dot is going to give you that. Now in C# version of 12, it has introduced this, I keep saying, because maybe this is the first time for you watching a video from Netcode Hub and you might not know. I'm telling you today. So that is all. Okay. C# version 12 has introduced primary constructor. So all the services that you need, you want to make it available in the whole body section, put it in the primary constructor. So write less code and efficient use. Okay. Powerful performance. Yeah, efficient use and powerful performance. So here we're going to be using our AppDB contest. So pass in here as AppDB contest. This is a contest. I think so. There's a contest class that I create. I'm going to say AppDB contest. Oh, no, let me do it again. So yes, and I need this. So this control period, we need to add a namespace to the section in here. And we have that control period KD. It has formatted. Okay, so this is what we need. So instead of creating it and initializing the field and doing a whole lot of code, you can do this just on one line or a piece of line. Okay, half piece of line, and you are way through. Okay, so you want to focus. You don't want to focus on get refresh token, get user token. No, you want to have first with the registration. If I click on registration, what should happen? Let's save this first. So first, you want to check if user has already registered. So I'm going to use this. So that first or default, you want to check the email to lower, and I will compare if user is already there. This must be an async. If it is there, that is, if user is not now, then return user already registered. But if in case user is not there, okay, user is now, then this is what you're going to do. We're going to be using AppDB content.save changes numerous times. So you know, in doing that, we can cache we can create one method to handle that, so we can be calling. Remember that in programming or in creating, developing, always remember to follow the instruction or the rule of drawing. Do not repeat yourself. Do not repeat yourself. So if there's a way out, please try to find that way out, and now have it one code which you can use them often. Do not repeat yourself. So we have this, and that's a commit. So AppDB content.save changes async, and that's what this method is going to do. Anytime that you call this, it's going to save the changes. Okay. So here we check if the user is not null, it means the user is already there. But what if in case the user is null? Then the next thing to do here is we want to prepare user account. Remember that here we have user, so we want to add this user account. You know, this user account here is a data table that we have. We want to create a section or a record for this user. So, you know, we're going to add this, and on the password, we want to encrypt it. So we're using this package, bencrypt.net.bencrypt.hash password. We pass in the string password, and it's going to encrypt it. So if you can use this, you have to install bencrypt.net. Control period. Let's see if you're going to have access to, and not this one, not this one. So it means you have to include it ourselves. So quickly, let's go back to solution. Go back. We can just copy this bencrypt.net and go to Solution Explorer. Right click on dependencies, not dependencies, yeah, dependencies to the server section, and I click on Manage NuGet packages. So let's make a search out of it, and that is a b.net. So that is this one. So we need to install this package to the server. Take note, not the client. So that is this one by Chris, and that is stable version 4.0.3. So install this peacefully, and we can now move on with this. Apply, and okay, so it is done. You go back in there, and now you see from the control period, we have to include the namespace of this, and hopefully Where's the namespace? I'm not sure it is done, right? So let's quickly check. Install. Okay, it did not install. Let's find out. So apply. So do we need to return this before this can be saved? Whoa. So throw this not implemented exception. Throw it here. Okay. Now try to get it installed again. Okay, so it's done. So in here you can see we have it set. We can just remove what we copied earlier on. So here, this is going to save the data to database. In order to get the ID of it, we have to append .entity to it, so we can retrieve the ID, the already saved data, the currently saved data. Okay, append this .entity to grab the ID in here. After grabbing the ID, when we save any record in database, you have to call in update appdb content.save changes async, and that's why we committed. So that's very simple thing that we are doing. Aside from this, we are going to check. Let's assign rows. So let's check if there's admin already there. In application, the first person to register is the admin. So we're going to check if we check system rows.name.lower equal to admin. We want to check if admin is there. So when we check and admin is null, then this is what we want to do. You want to create an admin and now add a current user to an admin row. So if admin is null, then please do add a new row as an admin. Get the entity, as you know, I've explained this earlier on, so save it, and now with the user row, add the row ID and also the user ID. So we are creating a relationship between them. Save it in here, and now save it. Okay, but in case the person admin row has been created, it means that there's a first person registered. Now the second person has to be assigned to a default created row as the user, because you want to handle 2 rows now. You can add more than that in here, or maybe later on you can manage user and you can be adding more, deleting and updating user information in there. Okay, so else, that's what we're going to do. You want to check if user is there. If not, then we create it and now add a current user to it. So we're going to check. We are making a check. Let me just put this in a new line like that. We are checking if the user is already there. Okay. If the person, we have this row ID to 0, that's the row ID defaultly. Now we are checking if this user created is null, that's this one. When the user is not created, then we are going to add a new row as name. We cache in the entity so we can retrieve the ID. Then we assign this row ID here to this cache in that the user record added. We want to get its ID here, so we assign it to this one. And aside from that, we are now going to add the user row to the user row table by adding or grabbing the row ID and now the current row which has been created, or the user ID and then the row ID as well. So that's what we are doing here. Now we are using this ternary operator to check. We're checking that here default row ID is 0. We want to check if this user row has been created or not. If it is the first time of being created, they're going to have this row ID set to the current ID of this. But in case it has been created already, then it's going to skip this. And when it skips, it's going to have row ID of 0. So we are checking if equal to 0, it means that's a new creation. No, that's the old that's been created already. But in case it is not, then it's a new creation. And in such case, we want to return the row ID. We set the user ID in here and I will commit it by saving it. So by doing so, we're going to have our 2 rows created with anybody that tries to sign up with the application. So I believe you've gotten the idea behind it, right? Yes, that's good. Now at the end, we want to return an account created. That's going to be a service response. So after saving this, then do return this, because at the end of this, either an admin is going to be created or a user is going to be created. Then at the end, we want to return this. So what we are having here is administrator is going to be created once, and aside from that, no one can have access to it again. So the first person who's going to register is going to be assigned to an administrator automatically. Aside from that, the subsequent ones are going to be assigned to a user row, because that's what we are checking first. we see if there's a section or a field in that row, system rows, which has a section name of ID. If it is there, then we want to skip it. We'll come to this. But in case it is not there, then we want to create it. So after creating, anytime the system checks, it will be available. So no creation anymore. It's going to skip it. All right, so we have this set. Now, what of the login? Quickly, let's do the login. Or do you want us to try this account first? Yes, we can. We can do that. Let's try that and see. Oh, we have not created our controller. So this is going to run, but we don't have access to the controller yet because we haven't created it. So let's go to Solution Explorer. Now you can see we have our controller folder. Let's expand it. And we're going to create one controller, and the name is going to be an account controller. So right click, then add a new controller in here. Since it is trying, that's why we can see this. It is blur. So we have to stop this and let's wait. So we can stop it and now move on with that. So I've closed it up, and now let's quickly go there and I'll try to create our controller in here. So that is it. Add a new controller, and the name here, do you remember, it's an account controller. But maybe you can decide to name it anything that you want. You can even put in your name. Make sure it's an API empty one. And we see account controller. Let's click on this. Now inside this account controller, you know, we are still going to use the new way, and that is a primary constructor. So let's pass it in here. And I think we need to include our iUser account, and that is the interface that we created. Let's include it in here. And the first method I'm going to do here, that's a registration. So registration, you're going to have an endpoint as register. So that is it. You have there's a route as register, and you know we are returning an action result of service response, which has a Boolean expression, and also it has a message property. If I right click on this and I pick this, pick definition, let's see what's going to happen. If I pick it, you can see we have this service response which contains a flag and now a message, right? So that's going to return to the user. Okay, so in case it is not to then return this, model is not. But you can customize it and now return some meaningful message instead of using this. This is just for a testing purpose, okay? And I will call this account service.register. So this is going to create the person account and also going to assign a role to the person if an admin or a user is going to do that. So quickly, let's run this. But we have to do the one thing after this. We have to create dependency injection in this before we can run this. So quickly, program.cs file, and in here we can make a duplicate of this like this, and we're going to say I use an account. So I user account, and here is an account repository, right? So account repository or user account repository. Yes. Now we are good to go. So the app is running, and this is what I want us to do. We are not done with the UI, so we navigate to the Swagger. So we can have access to the endpoint, and I'll test the registration and see if we're going to have access to the service response, which is success, account created. So we have this, and our email is this, our password is right here, this is our password, and everything is working. Click on execute this, and let's see the response in here. Yeah, that's fine. You can see we have an account created, and now this account here, defaultly, this user here is going to be assigned to an administrator because that's the first person to register. Now let's add user 1 to this, and now let's try to also register this. We're going to have the same thing, account created, right? So you can register multiple accounts in here. But when we check this from our object, right click on this system rows, let's open view, let's open token information. Okay, so token information is empty now because we have not created any token yet. Click on view data for user account and a user row, right click, and I click on view data. Now let's go through and see. So you can see from here the user ID 1, row ID, it is what? 1. User ID 2, row ID 2, meaning 1 for admin, 1 for user. Check the account here, and you can see we have ID 1, that's the user. The first person registered is assigned automatically as what? ID 1 to row ID 1. Check system rows, ID 1 is what? admin. So the first person created assigned to admin, the second one assigned to what? User. User controller. You see we have the ID 2 here is for the user 1 in here. When you check the rows here, ID user 2 from row 2. Check the rows. Row 1 is admin, row 2 is user. If we want us to add another one, it's going to be assigned to a user, not admin. So let's say user 2, click on execute, and now let's go back again, refresh the table, and now check it out. So if I, from the rows, it's going to be the same because you have 2 rows in here. If I click on this account, I'm going to have 3 accounts in now for user 2. Check the rows. I'm going to have 2 repeated twice. You can see, so row ID 2 is going to have this. So it means only one person has been assigned as admin. The rest are going to be assigned by what? Rows. Not, is it rows? User row. That is it. Okay, so we have this working perfectly. Now let's go back to the login and try to finish it quickly, so we can push the next video on how to consume this into a Blazor, WebAssembly project, and a whole lot of stuff. So quickly, let's go back to this using account, and here we're going to specify the login. So let me just comment this, and now from this login, I can just close this, save this. So here we can check if this is null, we can return module is empty, and that's the same thing that we did for this response. Even here we did not, so we can include same. So if this module is empty, here we are returning a service response, so it is not a login response, and we say false module is empty. We can do same in here. But since we're going to use data annotations like data, we don't need to use this, because definitely this will not be null. But well, it's good that you prepare yourself and keep it. Maybe in the next future, if something happens, you know how to deal with, isn't it? Preparation is very important. So let's put it in there. This must be an async. That is why we have this issue here. So make this as an async, and this is going to be saved. Yes. So that is it. Now, if this is not null, it has data, what are you going to do? We want to check and find user. So is user in a database? Get from the user account first or default. Is user found in there equal to the, you're going to use the email. Is the person there? If the person is not there, return user not found. But in case the person is there, then what is the next thing to do? We want to verify the password. That means here we are checking the email, and we have to also check the password. We don't want system to check only email and now send a person in. No, we want to also verify the password. And we're going to use also the same bcrypt.net, and here we're using this verify password. And now we need to specify this raw password, and now we need to specify the hash password. We got the hash password from making a query from database, and now we can complete or compare the hash password in here, and that's going to return true. So we are negating it, and now we are saying if it is false, return invalid username or password. If it is false, if password did not match, return this. It is not advisable to return invalid password. If it's a third person who is trying to log into the account, it's going to know that yes, I have a working email, so now let me try the password again and again and again. But as soon as you display invalid username or password, be confused which one. So is the email correct or the password is incorrect? Is the password correct or the username is incorrect? Then reset confusion. Okay, so that's fine. Now we're doing that, and here, but in case everything is working, then we want to generate tokens. So here I created as one token, one method to handle the 2 tokens. Okay. So you can see we have an access token, we have a refresh token. It's the same method that we're going to create. Now, where from this method, we have to add or update this token. But before that, let's have a definition for this token. So we want to create this token down here. And now with this token, it's going to accept. So let me see, it's going to accept just a single line. Okay. A single line. We're going to handle that using this. Let me put it down here. Okay, I believe this is going to make it simple for you to read. So we are using this random number generator, and it is coming from that is, if you check here, it is coming from this cryptography. Yes,